A Georgia prosecutor officially dropped the historic racketeering case against President Trump and others for attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election. I want to go right to CNN's Kara Scannell. What are you learning, Kara?
Good morning, Pam. Yeah, this new filing in from the prosecutor who had taken the place to look into the Fulton County investigation of Donald Trump and others has filed a motion with the court saying that they are not going to move forward with the case. They're dropping the charges. What he filed what's known as a nolle pros, and that means that in theory, because if the statute of limitations hasn't run out, a case could be refiled. But he attached to his filing about a 20-page statement explaining his rationales for why.
Recently, a Georgia prosecutor made the significant move of dropping the historic racketeering case against President Trump and others who tried to overturn the 2020 presidential election. This comes as the prosecutor filed what's called a nolle pros with the court, which basically means they could potentially refile the case later if the statute of limitations hasn't run out. To explain this decision, the prosecutor attached a detailed 20-page statement outlining the reasons behind it. This case all started with Trump's call to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, where he urged him to find the votes. That was a major trigger for District Attorney Fani Willis, who then opened an extensive investigation that led to those racketeering charges against Trump and many others for interfering with the election.
And as I told you, I did that on my free time before I became DA. But I had no way of knowing that these criminals were going to commit a crime.
You all want to intimidate people from doing the right thing, and you think that you're going to intimidate me. But you see, I'm not Marjorie Taylor Greene. I ain't going to quit in a month because somebody threatens me.
Now, there's something particularly notable about the situation with Mark Meadows that stands out as incredibly serious for Trump, especially considering the various legal troubles he's faced in his second term. There have been quite a few legal challenges for him before, like court decisions that overturned his tariff authority and judges contemplating jailing his FBI director. Plus, there were congressional investigations that brought forward some pretty damaging evidence. But what makes Meadows' involvement different is quite straightforward, yet daunting for Trump. Unlike others, Meadows wasn't just an outsider watching from the sidelines. He wasn't just one of Trump's political opponents gathering information from public resources. Nor was he a journalist or a congressional investigator with limited insight into presidential operations. Instead, Meadows was the White House chief of staff, the most powerful unelected official in the entire executive branch. He was in the room for every crucial decision and discussion and had access to all the essential documents.
Today, former President Trump's White House chief of staff, Mark Meadows, he declined to appear for testimony that he had been subpoenaed to give this morning. The investigation says that Mark Meadows is therefore likely to be found in contempt. He's potentially going to be criminally prosecuted for contempt. But Mr. Meadows ended the day today by suing the committee that's conducting the investigation in what appears to be an effort to drag this thing out, to slow it down.
That level of involvement adds a whole new layer of complexity to Trump's legal challenges. So, it turns out that a key player who was right in the midst of Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the outcome of the 2020 presidential election has had a change of heart. This person, Mark Meadows, has started cooperating a lot with federal prosecutors, giving them text messages and documents that really lay out what Trump knew, did, and said behind closed doors. It's pretty wild because during the time Trump was shouting about a stolen election, his closest advisors were telling him the opposite in private.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army,
or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you. We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
This means really all the criminal prosecutions against Donald Trump are over. Now, I just had a chance to quickly read some portions of the motion that this prosecutor put in. This prosecutor, Peter Scandalous, is a 40-year career non-political. There were some hiccups as it changed hands. The prosecutor originally on it got disqualified due to an undisclosed romantic relationship with a colleague. Because of this, the case landed with another prosecutor who initially thought there were too many conflicts to handle it. However, he decided to take it on himself. Now, this new prosecutor is sharing findings regarding Trump's various legal predicaments, including the one in New York related to hush money payments, which Trump is currently appealing. What's more, it looks like the Georgia case against Trump is effectively done now. This seems to indicate that all criminal prosecutions against him may be wrapping up. Funny how things turn out, right? Mark Meadows, who was the White House chief of staff, has been in the spotlight lately because he agreed to cooperate with investigators looking into the 2020 election and Trump's handling of classified documents.
I stand by my decisions as special counsel, including the decision to bring charges against President Trump. Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal activity. If asked whether to prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether that president was a Democrat or a Republican.
Reports say that he got immunity to testify in special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into federal election subversion. In his testimony, Meadows revealed that he never thought the election was stolen and described Trump's election night claim of victory as dishonest. Over the past year, Meadows has given detailed and thorough testimony multiple times and handed over a mountain of documents to the authorities. This includes a slew of text messages that paint a clear picture of Trump's attempts to overturn the election. These messages involved conversations with Republican lawmakers, conservative media figures, Trump family members, and even Jenny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. They were discussing different strategies for keeping Trump in power after he lost. Now, this isn't just some casual chat among minor players. Meadows was right in the thick of it, managing the conspiracy day by day from inside the White House. He documented the key players, the strategies being talked about, and the decisions made by the president himself as he tried to halt the peaceful transfer of power, which is quite a big deal in American history. It's important to grasp just how significant it is when a chief of staff decides to cooperate with prosecutors. This role holds a lot of weight in American law and presidential conduct cases. The chief of staff isn't just another senior advisor or cabinet member. They are the central hub for all information flowing to and from the president daily. They control the president's schedule, manage who has access to the Oval Office, and filter the advice, intelligence, and analysis that reach the president. Essentially, they are the main link between the president, the executive branch, the government, and the broader political landscape. In our system, there's no other position that holds as much influence or insight into presidential matters. You know, the chief of staff really has an inside track on what's going on with the president. They see everything, their thoughts, actions, and decisions on a daily basis, more closely than anyone else. So, when this key person decides to join forces with prosecutors looking into wrongdoing, it's a big deal. Their insights aren't just about single conversations or decisions. They can tie everything together into a compelling story that no one else can fully share. Now, here's where things take a turn for Trump. His reaction to Meadows cooperating is not just a misstep. It's viewed by legal experts as possibly destructive to his defense. Instead of breaking away from Meadows and adjusting his legal strategy to deal with the fact that his former chief of staff is now working with the prosecution, he did something that goes against all logic in criminal defense. He openly talked about the potential immunity deal Meadows might be getting, all while still pushing the narrative that the election was stolen. This is the same Meadows who under oath told prosecutors that narrative was false. Trump expressed on Truth Social that he didn't believe Meadows would lie about the rigged election just for an immunity deal. This is being seen as one of the most damaging statements a defendant could make because it acknowledges Meadows' immunity and admits that Meadows' version contradicts Trump's claims. It basically locks Trump into a corner, making it easier for Meadows to tear apart his defense with solid evidence, including text messages that back up his testimony. Let's be real here. This is an illegal strategy. It's like writing a public suicide note regarding his legal woes and sharing it on social media for all to see, including future jurors. So, let's dive deeper into what Meadows' cooperation actually includes and why it poses such a massive threat to Trump's legal standing. Understanding the nitty-gritty of it all is crucial. Mark Meadows has shared some crucial information with prosecutors that really digs into Trump's public statements and his defense strategy. This is key to understanding why legal experts are calling it the most significant legal trouble Trump has ever faced. At the heart of Meadows' testimony is a vital piece that challenges the main argument in Trump's defense against the federal election subversion case, the question of intent. Trump's legal team is leaning heavily on the idea that he truly believed the election was stolen. They argue that his efforts to challenge the election results and his actions on January 6th rallying supporters were all driven by a sincere belief he was righting a wrong rather than having any shady intent to overturn a result he knew he lost. If he genuinely thought the election was rigged, then his actions, though misguided, can be seen as a president trying to address what he saw as a legitimate grievance through methods he believed were legal. Now, if he was aware the election wasn't stolen, but acted anyway, that shifts everything. Those actions would be viewed as a conscious criminal conspiracy to block the lawful transfer of power. This difference between truly believing and knowingly acting against the truth is everything when it comes to facing a legal battle versus ending up with a federal conviction. And here's the kicker. Meadows has testified under oath and an immunity agreement that completely removes any reason for him to lie. He's saying Trump knew his declaration of victory on election night was false. The claims of fraud weren't taken seriously even by those closest to Trump, including his own chief of staff. The story about a stolen election wasn't a genuine reaction based on real evidence. It was a calculated strategy to hold on to power despite knowing full well he had lost the election fairly. That testimony from Meadows is a game share. He's not just another political opponent or a disgruntled ex-employee. He was right there with Trump during those crucial moments, hearing what he personally said and witnessing those private conversations that no one else might have been part of. The testimony has really changed the game for the prosecution. What started as a case filled with documents and circumstantial evidence has shifted to a strong case anchored by direct personal testimony from someone who was right there with the president during all the critical moments of the conspiracy. The fact that prosecutors offered an immunity deal to get this testimony speaks volumes about how valuable they believe his cooperation is. Federal prosecutors don't just hand out immunity to witnesses with shaky credibility or whose input is not that important. They only offer it to those whose testimony is crucial for proving the main parts of their case, transforming what might have been a tough prosecution into a solid one. Immunizing the former White House chief of staff is a huge move in modern American legal history, showing just how significant the evidence Meadows is providing is for the government's case. He has also given up a treasure trove of documents and text messages that pack a punch because they back up his testimony with tangible proof. Reports indicate that Meadows has shared tons of documents, including messages that lay out a detailed roadmap of Trump's attempts to overturn the election. These messages cover a lot of ground, talking with Republican lawmakers about strategies for challenging the election results, coordinating messaging with conservative media figures around the stolen election story, discussing plans with Trump family members to keep him in power, and even communicating with Virginia Thomas about how to delay the certification of the election results. Each of these threads of communication opens up new legal troubles for Trump, revealing that the push to overturn the election wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction to perceived fraud. Instead, it was a well-planned and coordinated campaign involving a whole network of people from government, media, and the political sphere, all documented through real-time text messages exchanged while the conspiracy was unfolding. Plus, there's another layer to Meadows' cooperation that hasn't been talked about as much, but it could also play a crucial role in the bigger legal picture. It turns out that Meadows has been grilled by prosecutors about the whole classified document situation at Mar-a-Lago. They're looking into whether Trump was informed about the need to return those classified materials to the National Archives, and if he just ignored the clear warnings from both his advisors and government officials about handling those documents correctly. If Meadows can lay out that Trump knew he had to return the documents but chose not to, it really makes it a lot easier for prosecutors to prove their case about obstruction because it shows that Trump wasn't just confused about the rules. He was fully aware and deliberately ignoring them. Then there's Trump's public response, which really escalates his legal troubles into something quite serious. His social media post acknowledging the immunity deal while still insisting the election was stolen does a few things that hurt his case. For starters, it locks him into the stolen election story right when his own chief of staff has testified that it's false, and he knew it was false. It creates a documented statement that prosecutors can present in court to show that Trump is sticking to a narrative that his closest advisor has stated under oath is dishonest. Moreover, by acknowledging Meadows' immunity deal, Trump can't claim in court that Meadows is making things up or that there's no deal at all. On top of that, he seems to be trying to pressure Meadows by suggesting his testimony is a lie, which could be seen as witness tampering or obstruction, depending on how the prosecutors want to frame it. Legal experts have pointed out that just about every word in Trump's social media response makes his situation worse, and any decent defense attorney would have probably urged against making that statement at all. But well, here we are. It's really something how Trump has a knack for commenting publicly on all sorts of things. But when it comes to his own legal troubles, he tends to hold back. This has become a pattern that's only harmed him throughout his legal battles. And oddly enough, prosecutors have gotten pretty good at using this weakness to their advantage. Now, let's talk about Meadows and why his cooperation is such a big deal. Legal experts have pointed out how important his testimony is, not just on its own, but because of how it connects with what other witnesses have already shared with prosecutors. Meadows isn't just talking in a bubble. His detailed version of events during that chaotic time in the White House can be matched up with what dozens of others have said to investigators and the grand jury about their roles. For instance, when Meadows mentions that Trump pushed a certain state official to alter vote counts, the prosecutors can cross-reference that info with what the state official has said and even check the recorded phone calls of those chats. Then when Meadows talks about private talks with Republican lawmakers about overturning election results, they can look at the text messages and sworn statements those lawmakers have provided. If Meadows brings up discussions in the White House about seizing voting machines or using the military, there are other people involved in those talks who have also spilled the beans to investigators. This all creates a network of accounts that support each other and get stronger with every additional witness. It puts Trump and his lawyers in a tough spot because it becomes really hard to dismiss any single account as just made up or driven by personal grudges. All these stories fit together like puzzle pieces from a bunch of different people. And when you step back, it clearly forms a picture of a coordinated effort that seems to have started right from the Oval Office. So, we really need to explore why Meadows' cooperation and Trump's troubling reactions to it mark such a crucial juncture in both the legal and political landscape of his presidency. It's fascinating how interconnected the future of the Republican Party is with Trump's legal troubles, especially with the midterm elections coming up in 2026. The real highlight here is how Mark Meadows' cooperation has cracked open a pretty tough evidentiary puzzle for prosecutors trying to build a case against a sitting or former president. They've been wrestling with the challenge of showing exactly what went down in the Oval Office and the White House during those intense moments when the plan to overturn the election was in full swing. You see, when it comes to criminal conspiracies in high government circles, things get tricky. Most of those critical conversations happen behind closed doors with just a handful of people in the room, making it hard to find witnesses, documents, or anything substantial to back up the claims. But now, Meadows' testimony and the documents he shared change all that. He was there for nearly every key chat and decision, and he's given prosecutors both his first-hand account and the supporting documents that line up perfectly with his story. This mix of insider insights and actual proof is like hitting the jackpot for criminal evidence. It's exactly what prosecutors need to shift from a circumstantial case to one that's backed by solid direct evidence from someone who was right there with the defendant. On the flip side, Trump's public reaction to Meadows working with the prosecution shows a troubling inability to put his legal survival first. Instead of focusing on the situation at hand, he seems more invested in keeping the stolen election story alive and asserting his usual dominance over everyone around him, even those who are now testifying against him. Every criminal defense lawyer would be advising Trump to keep quiet about the case, to stop commenting on Meadows and avoid making public statements that could turn into liabilities in court. But it just doesn't seem to be in him to do that.